Hey everybody, welcome to Hope for the Soul.
Welcome everybody.
It is Mother's Day weekend this weekend. So all the mamas, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
All the mommies.
Happy Mother's Day.
All the grandmas.
Happy Grandmother's Day.
All the abuelas.
Feliz.
Don't try. Don't try, because when you try, that's when you mess up.
That's almost said happy birthday.
I remember a couple of years ago, I said Happy Father's Day in Spanish, and I left a word out. And I remember Essie heard me. She said, "No, don't say that anymore." She said, "You're forgetting a word."
Go ahead and tell us.
No. Like, it wasn't like I said a bad word, but it was like I wasn't really wishing them a happy Father's Day. It's okay. They knew my heart.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Your heart was right.
Okay, so I have a couple jokes.
Let's talk about it.
So several years ago, long time ago, because I don't remember this, when the dads couldn't go into the delivery room when the moms were delivering the babies. I don't know at that time, but from what I hear, not always were the dads able to go into the delivery room. So there were 3 dads waiting in the waiting room. And, the moms were in the delivery rooms delivering their babies. So a nurse came in and announced to one man that, "Hey, your wife has just given birth to twins." And he was like, "Wow, that's a coincidence, because I play for the Minnesota Twins." So a few minutes later, nurse comes back and she says, "You're the proud father of triplets." He was like, "That's amazing, because I work for the 3M company." At that point, the third man, he slips out of his chair into the floor, and the other 2 dads, they're like, "Are you okay?" He said, "No, I'm not okay, because I work for 7-Up." Okay.
God block it.
I thought that was cute. Okay, so a little girl goes to the hospital to visit. She goes with her mom to visit her grandpa. And when they get to the hospital, the little girl runs ahead of the mom and says, "Grandpa, Grandpa." She's so excited. She said, "As soon as my mom walks into the room, I need you to talk like a frog." And Grandpa's like, "Okay, dear, but why?" She said, "Well, I need you to talk like a frog, because Mama says as soon as you croak, we're all going to Disney World."
Oh, my word. The innocence of that child.
Yeah. How many times have we said something, not like that, poor grandpa, but, they took it literal. You need to hurry up and.
Kids will expose a man or a woman, won't they?
Good or bad?
Good or bad, they'll expose us.
Innocent. They are.
That's why innocence is so awesome.
Uh-huh.
They don't know.
No.
Well, I want to wish my mother a happy Mother's Day this Mother's Day weekend. And I want to wish all my grandmothers, my mother-in-law, very happy Mother's Day. What about you?
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. She listens. She's a faithful listener to Hope for the Soul.
There you go. That's something she would say. Well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah. Happy Mother's Day to Mama. She'll listen to this episode or see this episode maybe a year from now.
At 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yes.
And then text us.
Yeah. She catches up. She's like, "I saw y'all on the TV." I'm like, "YouTube." And yeah, it was like an episode from a year ago. Like, Mama, catch up with the times.
Isn't that funny? Like, somebody, it always happens when we're off somewhere. Somebody will come and say something like, and I know I'm supposed to know what they're talking about, and it's funny, but I'm just like, And then I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'll play along as long as I can. And then they'll ask something that, like, I have to know the answer to.
Yeah.
I'll be like, man, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. And they'll be like, oh, the podcast. And it's like,
yeah.
Sorry.
So give me your favorite memory as a kid with your mom.
Let me think. Favorite memory. I remember Mom and Dad planned a big ski trip for our family. Our first ski trip we went on was to Angel Fire, New Mexico. And I say they planned it. They planned it very short notice. And we had never done anything like that. And so they went and bought like waterproof clothes, like windbreakers and stuff like that. And I don't think it was because of ignorance. I think it was because that's all they could afford. And I remember like water boots, having water boot, like like rubber boots. I remember I was so cold, but my feet never got wet, but they were freezing.
Yeah.
And we had an old gray Buick LeSabre, man of God car.
Yeah.
Man of God car. And
man of God car or man of God boat.
Boat. And I remember that was back in the days of MapQuest. Kids today don't know anything about that. When you had to print your directions, and each
Before
page was a leg, and then it was merge or veer or slight this, and it would never match.
Slight right.
And so it took us forever to get there. And then the way that it took us once we got into the Rocky Mountains in northern New Mexico, on MapQuest, I guess it looked like a road. And I guess on technicality, it was a road, but it was like a gravel, it was like a trail, mountain pass. And I remember that in that gray Buick LeSabre, I remember we got stuck and couldn't pass over. And finally there was like a snowplow that was coming. And he helped us. I don't know if he pushed us or pulled us or something. Goodness. And we got over. That was at the very top of the pass. And we got over and we were able to go down into Angel Fire. That was so much fun. Yeah. But that was Mom's doing. And that was a lot of fun. Worst memory of Mom. I was probably a little bit younger than Kiki. But I was feisty like Kiki. I had an attitude. And if I got mad, I see a lot of Kiki in me. I see a lot of me in Kiki, I guess I should say.
No, he doesn't call it mad.
Raging. And I would rage too. Exactly how he does now. That's what I did. And I remember I started talking back and Mom got mad.
Kinley.
Just like Kinley. And Mom had enough. And she said, boys who live in my house don't talk like this. And if you're going to talk like this, you have to move out. Well, true to Kinley. I said, well, I'm out of here. And Mom went and packed my suitcase. She put me on the front porch and she locked the door. That was the day that I knew, don't play with Tracy.
Yeah.
Because Tracy's crazy. And, let me turn Alex's mic up because I hear, but I don't think they hear. And that was a good.
I said bye.
Yeah, bye.
That's exactly. And I don't know how, it was probably 5 or 10 minutes she made me sit on the front porch, but it seemed like hours.
Yeah.
And I was banging on the door. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so what about you? Your turn.
So my favorite memory, I have a lot of memories, but probably the one that just sticks out the most is it was my 7th birthday. And I got up and my mom wasn't home. And it was a Saturday. My birthday was on a Saturday. And I was like, this is weird. So my dad was home. And actually, Raquel was with us that weekend. She was staying with us that weekend. And I kept asking her, my dad, this is my dad's youngest sister. I'm like, where's Mom at? And like, they would never answer me. Like, I don't know. Well, we didn't have cell phones. So, I took that as, an answer. They don't know. And like, they hadn't said happy birthday or anything.
That crushed you.
Yes, it did. I'm like, do they not know it's July 10th? And so like several hours go by, and my mom finally comes back. It seemed like 20 hours, and it was probably like noontime. And she tells us to get dressed, and she gives me this outfit. She's like, "Here, put this outfit on." And I look at it, and this outfit was amazing. Like, it was one of my favorite outfits, and it was new. Still, no one had said happy birthday. And so I'm like, am I supposed to assume this is my birthday present? And then we go over to my Meemaw's house, and my mom opens the door, and she's like, surprise! Turns out they didn't forget my birthday. It was just a surprise. But like a 7-year-old don't get that. Like, you're supposed to wish me a happy birthday from the moment I wake up.
You walk out of the room with bedhead.
And so, yeah, my mom had it all decorated like in Barbies, like little streamers.
For 38, is that what you want?
Look, and I still have
pink. There's a pink revival going on in our family right now.
It was my favorite. And I've never been much of like a birthday cake person. There was birthday cake. I blew out a candle. But Meemaw had made me I love those cheese pies. She made me a cherry cheese pie. And it was one of the best days of my life.
I like birthday cake. But you can't go wrong with a great American cookie. It's so good. Chocolate chip with all that icing on it.
Yeah. Now,
First whistle of the podcast, I think, right there.
My worst memory or scary memory, I really don't have a lot because me and my mom have always really gotten along. I mean, there's very few times that it was just like a bad day between me and her. But I remember one time, I was probably around the same age, and I said something. I can't even remember what I said, but it was the last time I said it because she told me to go out and pick my own switch. I went, yeah. Can we say that on the podcast?
Sure, we just did.
And she told me to go pick my own switch. And I went out there like, of course I'm going to pick the smallest one, the twig. Well, I took it back to her, and she looks at me like, you just made matters worse.
Had to go pick another one.
Anyways, that was probably, I want to think, the last time a switch was used.
And you were 7?
7, 8.
Golly, I was such a bad kid.
Well, my mom really wasn't the discipline on that side. She left that part, you wait till your dad gets home.
The last spanking I got was from my mom. And it hurt her. She hurt herself.
Kind of like, again, I don't know if we can say this on the podcast.
No, we're saying it.
Kinley got in trouble yesterday. And halfway through his troubled times, he goes, Mom, you're weak.
Oh, that's so good.
And I told my mom this morning, I was telling her about it, and I said, I wanted to laugh so bad, but I kept it inside. Mom ended up winning, and he was sorry, and, blah, blah, blah. But I won that time because sometimes the laughter takes over. But anyways, we're rambling now.
What's your favorite part of being a mom?
Oh, man. Okay, I think it changes in stages of life. When they were 2, 3 years old, 3 to 1, I guess, because we had 3 under 3. But it was showing them and teaching them things because they were just little sponges and they soaked everything up. And so teaching them new things was always kind of my favorite. But now that Presley will be 12 in July.
That's crazy.
Allie is 10, Kinley's 9. Now it's the conversation of like, okay, what you've learned so far and being able to talk politics.
We are a very political family.
But not just, a lot of it's not just politics. It's
morals.
Morality. Yeah. And, like I told you, one day me and Press was on the way to school and we had a conversation about something that should not be political, but it is now. And he told me, he was like, I didn't say my point of view. I let him speak first. And he was like, Mom, if they would just do this, then that problem, it wouldn't be a problem. And inside I was like, yes, you get it. You get it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I enjoy that too. Yeah. So we have a lot to do today.
Yeah.
Our plans got kind of misput, and so we're scrambling to get everything done that we need to get done. So we don't have a lot of time. But in our talking about mothers and Mother's Day, my mind this morning when we were talking about the podcast, my mind immediately, your mind went to Eve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And immediately I started thinking, we went to kind of two different directions, but I started thinking, and I verbalized it to you, that I see you do so many things that your mom does.
Yeah.
And I see...
some of them I don't know why I do.
Exactly. That's where I was going.
Oh, really?
And then I see Ruby Edwards in you.
Oh, yeah.
And I see Mama Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see all these women...
the traits.
In your family, the traits.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking, Eve didn't have anyone to model.
Yeah.
She had no one to model.
She was the first.
She, not only did she have two boys.
Rowdy.
She had some rowdy ones.
Yeah.
So this morning I was reading Genesis chapter 4. The story, that's the first reference in Scripture of motherhood.
She had 3 boys.
3 boys, but 2 boys initially.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the Lord blessed them. And I got to thinking that she had no one to model after.
Yeah.
So how many things today that you do, things that you did this morning getting our family out the door, when our children were young, how many things do you do today that you do that not because Denise or not because of Ruby or not because of Mama, not because of any of these other women, really you do it because Eve did it.
Yeah.
And there was just that intuition, there was that instinct. And then I got to thinking about, early on in our parenting when our babies were little and we couldn't get them to stop crying, and your mom was with us, or my mom. They would grab the baby and swaddle them and hold them tight, and that showed us what to do. And now,
comfort.
Yes, and now I see you doing that with like your little sister or young moms here in our church. You see them in a moment during a service or after the service, and they're exasperated and they're scared, and you just walk up and take over, and you model to that young mother what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, especially a first-time mom, and you get overwhelmed, and they won't stop crying. They won't stop crying. And so, I've done it to Katie. Just take Boston and, just swaddle them up tight.
And now Katie's getting it, and great mother. But the first couple months, I remember the feeling that we felt, and I can't imagine your feelings when Pressy was a month old or a couple weeks old.
Well, it's like, okay, the intuition's there, but it's also like, I've never done this, and this is a human being.
This is not something or someone I can take back.
More like it's you get overwhelmed by the emotions. It's not like you can't do it. The emotions.
I remember your emotions so we came home from the hospital with Presley.
Yeah.
Your mom came home with us, and she made sure we were okay for a couple hours, and then she left.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was out of the driveway yet.
No, she went, she was at the house, and then she went home because we were taking Presley to the doctor and then going to her house. So it's not like she left us for so long, but those few hours of taking him to the hospital
I forgot about all that.
I was a wreck. I'm like, I had to go to the doctor without her. I'm going to break him. Yeah. And I remember we were getting him undressed, and I just started crying.
That postpartum thing is real.
And you were like, what is wrong? And I was like, I couldn't even tell you what was wrong.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so watching those moments,
Yeah.
and Eve had no one.
No. Yeah, I guess I've never thought about that until on the way here you said that in the car. And yeah, she didn't have a mom that said, here, let me help you.
And then to think that the first death of mankind was the death not of a parent, but a death of a child, a death of a son. How it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yet that was the first death in humanity.
Yeah. A parent is never supposed to bury their child.
Is what we think.
Right. Yeah.
But biblically, the first parents buried their child first. And so that grief, and then you mentioned that they had 3 kids and the Lord blessed them with Seth.
Yeah.
And God granted me another son in the place of Abel, is what Genesis 4:25 says. And verse 26, when Seth grew up, he had a son and named him Enosh. At that time, people first began to worship the Lord by name. So the first grandbaby is what brought forth mankind's worship, calling him by his name, Yahweh. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That through motherhood, worship began. I don't think we've ever talked about this before. I don't think this has ever dawned on me before.
No.
But scripturally, the first time people began to worship the Lord by name was when a baby was born. Adam and Eve's grandbaby.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's the power of motherhood. You know, we look at we look through the lens of Scripture from a patriarchal standpoint. In other words, a male-dominated standpoint, and it is. But we overlook the matriarch. We overlook the incredible women that were just as valuable and just as used, and felt just as much pain, but also experienced just as much victory. And it all started with Eve.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you got to go back to where it all began. And you got to, when life gets off, when family gets off, what happens when a marriage gets off? You need to go back to where it all began. You need to go back to the vows. We might be fighting right now, babe. We might be fussing right now. But there was a day that we stood at an altar and we held hands and we looked at each other in the eye. We said, till death do us part, for richer or poorer. There's been a lot more poor days than richer days for all of us. And sickness and in health, good times and bad times. You got to go back where it started. And I think sometimes for our families to maintain a healthy perspective, we don't have to go back. I mean, yes, we need to go back to where it started, but sometimes we need to go back even further.
Yeah.
We need to go back to the first family.
Yeah.
And see what they did right and see what they did wrong and learn from them. And Eve, just imagine, could it be that we swaddle our children today because Eve swaddled Cain and Abel? She had no one to tell her what to do. She just started doing things. She had no one to teach her how to be a good mother and give nourishment and even feed the baby. And she had to just figure these things out as God
that's
gave
true.
her that.
The Bible talks that Jesus was swaddled, so it came from somewhere.
I firmly believe that Eve is the one that set all of these things in motion. Now we might do things differently today, but the core of the core traits of motherhood, I believe, and Scripture doesn't tell us.
Yeah.
But I think if we were there, we would see Eve acting, or we would see ourselves acting how Eve acted.
Yeah.
Especially you women. And I think that's so powerful that I keep on circling back to this, that she had no one. And maybe someone that's listening today, a young mother or a young lady who wants to be a mother, and you've had no one to model what good parenting looks like.
Yeah.
Can I say that you're not alone? Because Eve had no one to model. And there's some chaos in those boys that she had, those first two boys.
Yeah.
But there's also the promises of God.
Yeah.
And God gave her Seth, and from them came all of humanity. And it all began. Oh, yes, there's sin, there's mistake. For instance, there was not supposed to be pain in childbirth, but because they fell to temptation.
And now we say, oh, well, thanks a lot, Eve.
Thanks, Eve.
Yeah.
And so Eve kind of gets the brunt of that joke.
Yeah.
But Eve also should get the brunt of all the accolades of what a strong mother looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And walking through heartache and walking through all the things that she walked through that has brought humanity to where we are today.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have. But I've never thought of Mother's Day in that form, and probably
it was really good. I really like that. We can relate with Eve. You know, God blessed her through her grandchild, started turning things around. Before Presley got here, both of our families were going through some hard times.
Yeah.
And
that was a crazy time. Oh my word.
And Presley was like, this breath of fresh air. He brought so much joy to both of our families, who we really needed it. Yeah. We felt like we were drowning. And so he brought joy. Yeah. He brought peace. And I think that's a lot of why he has now he's all boy, and he can be rowdy, and Alex gets a lot of the brunt of his jokes. He's ruthless to Alex. But he's got such a
It's almost like Alex is the big sister to him.
Actually, speaking of Alex, last night, Kinley walked by her, and I thought he was pulling one of Presley's jokes on Alex. And I said, I kind of just looked, and I was like, oh my goodness, I thought he was just in the deal as if she thought he was doing the same thing. And she didn't even flinch. She's like, whatever. But no, I think that's a lot why Presley he's sensitive. And he's got such a sweet spirit. We needed that. So God blessed us with that. And
isn't it amazing that through motherhood, through the gift of a baby, that the Lord brings healing?
Yeah.
And that's what happened in our family.
Yeah.
And then with Adam and Eve, Seth brought healing.
Yeah.
To broken hearts and all the chaos that they had endured of sons betraying each other. And it's so cool. Anyway, thanks for listening today.
Yes.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
We're excited to have Pastor Josh Youngblood on the pod next week. And
it'll be a good episode.
It's going to be fun. So tune in next week, and we hope you enjoyed this. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms. You are doing better than you think you are. So don't beat yourself up. You're doing a good job. God bless everybody.